Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So Riley Gaines recently spoke at a Trump rally.
You have one ticket that knows what a woman is and has vowed to take decisive action in protecting our sex-based rights, compared to the other ticket that thinks men can become pregnant and that tampons belong in boys' bathrooms. I see on social media people saying they're voting for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. Well, guess what? I am voting for Donald J. Trump because I am a woman.
She called out the Democrats for their policies that are related to gender and their stance for gender-affirming medical procedures for minors, as well as the border. Their policies that have adversely affected women, children, as well as people of colour and people living in low socioeconomic areas.
Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better.
Sex reassignment procedures for minors, hormones, puberty blockers have been banned across Europe, including the UK. It's as if the Cass report never existed. Apparently Michelle Obama didn't get the memo.
Riley Gaines joins us now. Riley, always so great to have you on. So you were at the rally and you're making the case. I mean, the Democrats try to pretend like they own women. They're the party for women. And what's your case for why that's not the case?
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Always a joy to be on with you. This is coming off the heels of the DNC. We heard it from virtually every single speaker at the DNC. They talked about they are the party of and for women. They talked about a woman's right to dismember and abort the developing child in her womb. They used the phrase, my body, my choice. They spoke of healthcare freedom. Where was this healthcare freedom in 2020? This was not implemented, this bodily autonomy they spoke of. That didn't matter when it came to injecting yourself with an experimental, ineffective vaccine that has zero credibility. No, the Democratic Party, they were the tyrants who fired healthcare workers. They fired school teachers, active duty military members for not conforming with their autocratic mandates. And so my message to voters, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of race, of religion, of sexual orientation, of any identity factor, my message to voters is that a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote against your daughter's future. We see, of course, the issue that I speak most frequently of, the gender ideology movement. We see how this movement preys on the most vulnerable, that being women and children. It's stripping away our rights to safety, our rights to privacy, our rights to equal opportunity. But it's also important to mention that just this week, we saw in Afghanistan, the Taliban implemented a law, the most oppressive law for women that we've seen thus far. Women aren't allowed to speak. They're not allowed to show any skin. They're not allowed to leave their house without a male chaperone. They're not allowed to even look at a man they are not related to or married to. Yet have we seen a statement issued by the White House? No, of course not. Women want a safe border. Women want a good and stable economy. And none of those things have been, we have seen from the Democratic Party thus far, and we won't in the next 4 years if they maintain leadership.
And this isn't about telling people who to vote for, that Trump is going to save us or anything like that. This isn't that sort of video. But I do want women to consider, is voting for the Democrats in our best interest? When you vote blue, are you voting in the best interest of your safety, of your finances, your children? These are the questions that have to be asked. Not just Roe v. Wade, Roe v. Wade. That's all they want you to focus on. Let me tell you something. They're not going to do anything about Roe v. Wade. That is going to stay as it is. The power has been given back to the states. But what the Democrats want is more power being given to the federal government.
Riley, what does it say to you? Look, the strongest demographic group in voting for Kamala Harris and voting for Democrats is single young women. That is their overwhelming strongest group. Now, you know, we can go into why, like, abortion is often a big issue with that group. Even though Donald Trump has said he's not looking for a national abortion ban, it pulls people in one direction. Kamala Harris is a female candidate, so a lot of people want to rally around a female candidate. Do you think any of the things you're laying out to us, and you're young, I mean, is anything that you're laying out you think is breaking through with that group, that single young women who are so reliable for Democrats?
I think so. I think people my age, just recently graduating college, we're getting out into the real world and we're seeing the effects of progressive policies. Again, forget the gender ideology movement. Look at how much groceries cost, how much gas costs, how much rent, how much your mortgage, how much all that costs. So I think when you're getting out into the real world, people my age begin to understand, again, the harm and the severity, the trajectory of where we're going if we vote for this same leadership again. Unfortunately, it takes time, it takes learning, it takes being exposed to tragic scenarios like what happened to me, like what happened to Lincoln Riley at the border. Again, all of this is because of the Biden-Harris administration, and you can expect it to continue under the Harris-Walz administration.
Women have been killed and lost their lives as a direct result of Democratic policies, soft on crime policies, open borders. This has had a direct effect on the safety of women. It has had a direct effect on the lives of women. As far as I'm concerned, the Democratic Party and their soft on crime policies, open borders, has caused them to have blood on their hands. We had nursing student Lincoln Riley, who lost her life senselessly because an illegal immigrant who shouldn't have been in this country in the first place was not only allowed out on the street again, but was allowed to move around the US, go to another state.
According to Homeland Security, Jose Ibarra and his wife entered the U.S. near El Paso in September 2022. After being arrested and released, they went to New York. At that time, immigration attorney Pamela Peinado says Venezuelans had special protective status in the U.S.
It could be political unrest, it could be a national disaster, etc. But we're basically allowing these individuals to stay here for a temporary amount of time because it's unsafe to send them back to their home country.
But in an interview with the New York Post, Ibarra's wife says that before their immigration hearing, Jose was arrested for riding a moped with their 5-year-old son while doing food deliveries. Neither were wearing a helmet. At that point, ICE could have taken Jose into custody, but it says he was released before that could happen.
So this is your policies in action, Mr. Secretary. A criminal is permitted into this country on grounds flatly not permitted, flatly contradictory to the statute. He commits a crime against a child, and then he gets a work permit. He gets a work permit. You want to know why all of the jobs in the last 2 or 3 years have gone to illegal migrants? Working people in this country can't get a job. Their unemployment rate's high. Why? Because of things like this. And then what's he do? Well, we all know. Then in February, he commits the heinous crime against Lincoln Riley.
12-year-old Houston area resident Jocelyn Nungare lost her life senselessly.
My daughter was just 12. She had dreams to be famous. She wanted to be a famous actor. She was so funny. She was her own personality. And it's been very hard. It's been very hard. June 17th was the day her life was taken. She was left with no clothing from the waist down, was thrown in a bayou, left and strangled to death. We believe, yes, she was assaulted off of DNA kit that has been, but it's still very, very early, and it's still very, very raw, and it's still very, very surreal. And they had no reason to do anything that they did to Jocelyn. There was over 300 detention beds that they should have been at because they were detained and they were released when they shouldn't have been released. One had an ankle monitor, didn't stop anything. So now I have to go through the rest of my life with my son, always asking for his sister. And I just really, really, really want everybody to please take into consideration how important border control is, because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crimes that shouldn't be happening in the first place. So please, please, I really hope everybody can hear my pain.
These were all deaths that were preventable. If Trump policies were still in place, these murderers would never have been in the country, or they certainly wouldn't have been here long. Mother of 5, Rachel Mooring, who was hiking in a well-known trail that locals consider to be safe, where you see mothers with their strollers exercising in this area. Another life taken, again in a situation that was preventable.
We're 18,000 miles, 1,800 miles from the border. And because of this open border, we've had not just my daughter, but we've actually had 2 in the same county that we're from, where illegal immigrants have come in and have caused rape and murder of our citizens. And the reason why I came here today and I accepted the invitation is because I really want our words to be heard. And I really want you to take to heart what we're saying. We're not here for a political stand, although we are. We're here because we're losing our moms, our daughters, our children to criminals. And that shouldn't happen. We should be taking care of our country, our people. And the only way I believe that's going to happen is if President Trump is reelected as president. And we close up this border and we put policies back into place that were there before, instead of this open border thing. We're gonna end up being a third world country if it continues this way. And I truly hope that you just take my words to heart, because it's devastating to lose a child, but even more devastating when you see the pictures or you see the body and you really understand what's happened to that person. So please take to heart, this is a very, very important issue. And it's one that's either going to make or break our country. It's not so much, it's about America, it's about Americans, it's about us taking and protecting ourselves and looking out for each other. It's about protecting our families. So, thank you. Thank you.
Her life was taken by an illegal who had committed murder in his home country. These people are not vetted, and they're flooding into the country due to Democrat policies. And we're told if we speak out against this, we're racist, we're xenophobic. And the people who enter this country illegally, they know exactly what they're doing. They're playing the system, a system that has allowed them to come in unchallenged. We have Venezuelan gang members making music videos, bragging about entering the US. The administration, literally on day 1, ended policies that secured the border. And no, I'm not demonizing genuine asylum seekers. I know they exist, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who are playing the system, who are coming here, who are essentially economic migrants. And most of the images and videos we see of people entering the country illegally are military-aged men. They're not women and children fleeing for their lives. They're people that know, in no uncertain terms, that our borders are open, that our borders are not secure. Now is the time to come to the US. The numbers speak for themselves. These are unprecedented numbers. Millions of illegals flooding into the country. That was not happening when Trump was in office. It's as simple as that. And what this administration is known for is their ludicrous policy of catch and release. Not just at the border, but also in Democrat-run cities, in Democrat-run states. This is how they operate. They're letting criminals back out onto the street, reducing their bail, because apparently, it's bigotry to lock people up. Some of them are even given plane tickets to fly anywhere they want to within the US. And we know what's been going on in New York City, Chicago. They've been given free healthcare. They've been given allowances, credit cards, prepaid credit cards, because they don't like the food. So, we give them money so they can go and buy their own food. They can go to whatever store they want to go to and purchase their own food. Meanwhile, US citizens are struggling to afford food, struggling to afford groceries. People are coming here as economic migrants for opportunities, but criminals are also coming here for opportunities related to criminal endeavours, and they're giving the authorities the middle finger. Where are the children in cages, people? They've gone from crying about kids being in Obama's cages to ignoring the fact that thousands upon thousands of children have gone missing at the border. Why isn't AOC visiting the border and crying about that? And contrary to what this Harris campaign would have you believe, Kamala was, or is, the border czar. That was her appointment upon becoming VP.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
Well, I mentioned it because I know Republicans have certainly come at you on this, but Democratic Congressman Cuellar has a border district, has said to you and the president, come, you need to see this.
And don't let the CNN propaganda fool you, where they're literally trying to blame Trump for all of this because he encouraged Republicans to reject a bill, a disingenuous bill that involved giving amnesty to illegal immigrants, helping them get work permits, giving them a pathway to citizenship. Everything except deporting them. Everything except mass deportation, which is the only thing that is going to work. It was a completely useless bill, purely designed to point fingers. This is how politics is played. Nobody who wants what's best for the country would agree to that, and they know it.
Tonight we are hearing from the father of 22-year-old Lauren Johansson, a Mississippi woman killed back in June.
Today, her father appeared in a court hearing for two Nashville bonding companies who didn't follow orders during the release of Bryson Rivers.
He was in a Nashville jail for months and charged with aggravated kidnapping after the two got in a brutal fight on a trip to Music City. Our Sharon Dankwa breaks down a message shared by her father after the hearing.
To look at all these different failures, and there's every day I'm learning of a new failure.
Details Lance Johansson says all led up to the death of his 22-year-old daughter, Lauren Johansson.
At some point, just one thing went our way, she'd still be here today. The judges just need to know that until they can get this stuff straight, they don't need to let these people out of jail because they're killing people.
He blames Judge Cheryl Blackburn for his daughter's death. He says Blackburn let his daughter's alleged abuser, Bryson Rivers, out of jail by lowering his bond back in June, a decision that sparked a chain of miscommunication that led to bond companies putting wrong restrictions on Rivers' ankle monitor. He allegedly left the state, found and killed Johansson's daughter days later.
She was treated inhumanely. And I think we found today that, yes, the bonds aren't high enough. And then when we make a bond, the bond's not being ordered, okay? And then when we order the bond, the person can't remember to give them the bond order.
During the hearing, Johansson learned that the bond company signed off on Rivers' bond conditions, but never saw or were shown the court order that said that he was supposed to stay in Davidson County and get an ankle monitor with a specific company.
I just want to let them know that, to think twice before they let these people out. It's very disappointing that the system's this way. And sometimes systems need to all have meetings to talk about these things.
During the hearing, the bond companies involved detailed their shortcomings and explained how they acted and went off of Rivers' word instead of verifying the court documents.
If your court can let somebody out who's a vicious killer at any time of the day, whenever they want to, I really think that a lot of things could have been done different and my daughter would be alive right now.
Johansson told the court he just hopes this doesn't happen to anyone else.
Apparently, the dad begged the judge not to let this guy out. Yes, there were some errors made, clerical errors, but the main issue is that this guy was allowed out in the first place. Why was his bond lowered? He was a violent, dangerous criminal. He was after a specific person, somebody who he had been violent towards and kidnapped previously. You know that he has somebody out there who he is targeting. 3 women, I believe, die of DV every week in America. This guy was clearly a threat. My heart really goes out to that father and the relatives of all the other victims. What's so sad is this was preventable. I don't understand the logic of letting somebody back out onto the streets who kidnapped somebody and is a violent criminal. I don't understand the logic. But apparently that's what Democrat policies are all about. Catch and release. And even all the clerical errors. Things are really sloppy these days, if you haven't noticed. But what's sad is people are losing their lives as a result. People are falling victim as a direct result of the standards dropping and of the logic that's being applied to these policies, a lack of logic, shall I say. This administration, which includes Kamala, does not have the best interests of women at heart. And I can't for the life of me understand why people are insisting on voting for a Harris administration. People who advocate for the rights of women. We have Martina Navratilova, who's been pushing this whole Harris thing. I'm assuming it's because she hates Trump so much. But don't let your TDS cause you to vote against your best interests. Somebody who is a known advocate for women's sports and women's spaces is still going to vote for Harris. Is still going to vote for the very administration that wants to ruin Title IX and take away the rights that are specific to women and girls in our college campuses, in our schools. They want you to believe Roe v. Wade being put back to the states is your biggest issue, is your biggest threat. But the reality is, the biggest threat towards women is crime, is the lack of safety in our communities. That indeed is the biggest threat. So with the changes to Title IX, women and girls are going to be put at even more risk on our college campuses, in locker rooms, college bathrooms, and even sorority houses.
At first, I was shocked and perplexed that the NCAA was allowing him to swim on the women's team and held out some hope that the NCAA would see the obvious injustice of allowing a man to compete against women, or that Georgia Tech University would stand up for women and insist on a change in the rules before the national championships. But as the year went on and Thomas continued to compete on the women's team, it started to become clear that no one was speaking up for the rights of women.
I was awarded a life-changing full academic scholarship and the chance to pursue my dream. But part of that dream, my dream of becoming an All-American in the 500-yard freestyle event at the fastest short course swim meet in the world, was suddenly washed away 2 years ago. On that day in the pool at Georgia Tech University, my dream became not just a bad dream, not just an unfulfilled dream, but it really became a nightmare. This was a nightmare because what happened to me in a country that is known as the land of the free and the home of the brave is that I learned that even here in the home of the brave, some people are not willing to stand up for the rights of women.
Let me be clear. I label this as sexual harassment because me and the 4 witnesses you heard from today and the hundreds of other 18 to 22-year-old college girls were not asked for our consent, and we did not give our consent to being exploited and exposed to a 6'4" fully naked man. Because you did nothing. That man walked into our women's locker room at your university and saw me undressed down to full nudity. I didn't even know he had access to our locker room until I heard a man's voice and turned around and saw him a few feet in front of me, naked, inches away from where I was simultaneously unclothed. You allowed college women to be traumatized and violated on your campus in this way. Why didn't you protect us? Don't you understand how important sport is to women? Don't you understand that to get to the NCAA championships, we devote our blood, sweat, and tears for years, training to shave merely hundredths of a second off of our time for a shot at being an All-American or a national champion? Personally, I think you do understand these things, but for some reason, they weren't important to you.
So NCAA female athletes attended the special committee in protecting women's sports, and Riley Gaines, Rika George, Kylie Allens, Grace County, and Caitlin Wheeler were among the attendees. They are former NCAA swimmers who had to put up with Leah Thomas being in their locker rooms, who had to deal with having to compete against this person, knowing that this person is male. Olympic swimmer Rika George gave a heartbreaking testimony of a traumatic encounter with Leah Thomas.
I remember the first time I ran into Thomas. It was one day before the meet started. I was talking with one of my teammates on the pool deck in front of the locker room door. I opened the locker room door and was about to turn around and walk into the locker room to change when I physically bumped into Thomas. I was shocked by his size. He was about 6'4" tall. And I was shocked that as he bumped into me, his male genitalia was touching my hand that was stuck between us as he was leaving the locker room. I couldn't even say sorry. I froze, and he just smiled at me and said sorry in a male voice. We did not even have a women's locker room for the NCAA Women's National Championships. I repeatedly looked over my shoulder the whole time while I was changing. I was terrified knowing he could walk in on me at any second as I changed into my swimsuit, and the private areas of my body would be exposed to this man, and my privacy and desire not to expose myself to a man unwillingly stripped from me. When we got back to the hotel with my team, I and many of the girls walked up to our coaches and asked them if they knew we were being forced to change in the same locker room as a man. They told us they would bring up this issue during their coaches' meeting later that day. A few hours later, our coach told us that several coaches asked the NCAA to give women a safe, private changing space, but the NCAA turned them down. That the NCAA will let Thomas change with the women, and we women just have to go with it.
Marika is originally from Hungary. She said she came here to pursue the American dream, to live in the land of the free. And Georgia Tech, in a statement to Fox, looked like to me they just basically blamed the NCAA. They said the host institution, Georgia Tech, was the venue for the 2022 NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships. As its standard practice with NCAA championships, the event was administered by the NCAA. We have and will continue to cooperate with the committee. And on X, referring to Rika's testimony, Riley said, what she describes is literally SA, allowed and encouraged by the NCAA, Georgia Tech, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.